Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. June 17th, 1896. British explorer Frederick Jackson is standing on the jagged, frozen coast of Cape Flora in the Franz Joseph Land archipelago. The world here is a monochrome nightmare, a blinding, horizontal sheet of white where the sky and the ice merge into a single freezing void. The wind is a constant howling weight, whipping shards of ice against Jackson's goggles with a sound like breaking glass. Suddenly, the silence is shattered. Jackson's dog lunges at the end of its lead, barking frantically into the void. Jackson shields his eyes, squinting against the gale. He expects to see a polar bear, the only thing that should be moving in this wasteland. Instead, a silhouette emerges from the white. Then another. The figures that stumble out of the mist don't look human. They look like primeval demons risen from the depths of the ice. They are covered from head to toe in a thick, shimmering crust of soot and seal blubber, their clothes so saturated with grease and oil that they look like black armor. Their faces are unrecognizable, masked by a year's worth of matted hair, salt-encrusted beards, and skin blackened by the smoke of a train oil lamp. They have spent the last 15 months wandering the high Arctic, sleeping in a hole in the ground and fighting off bears with nothing but grit and a few rounds of ammunition. Jackson stands frozen. He is 1,000 miles from civilization, and he is looking at two ghosts. The lead figure stops a few feet away. He doesn't collapse. He doesn't beg for help. He just stands there, his blue eyes piercing through the layers of grime and frost. Jackson finally catches his breath. A realization hits him like a physical blow. He looks at the tall, soot-blackened specter and asks, "Aren't you Nansen?" The man nods once. His voice is raspy from months of silence and freezing air, but it is steady. Yes, I am Nansen. Hello and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. I am joined once again by badass producer, Andrew Jacobs. Andrew, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We've got a good story today.
Thanks. I think this is our first episode that we've done in the new year. So happy new year. It's still technically January when we're recording this. So yes. I think I'm in the clear to say that.
Yes, that's true. It is. The episode is going to air in early February. However, right around
now
the
I look like a psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Happy New Year. Some people are 6 weeks behind. It's fine.
Yeah.
But this episode is going to air right around the time of the Winter Olympics. Are you excited about the Winter Olympics?
I was born
You're in
and
Southern
raised
California. I grew up in Florida, so we're not going to compete anytime soon in the Winter Olympics. But I'm currently in Brazil, which also doesn't get snow.
Yeah, I'm a California guy, so the Winter Olympics were never my thing because I never looked at anything they were doing and thought, I can go outside and do that. Yeah, not a big Winter Olympics guy. Speed skating is kind of cool. I like anything that's kind of like racing is fun.
Yes,
Yes.
Racing stuff is cool. There's a lot of cool stuff. I like watching the bobsled, but some of it is just kind of so foreign. Like you said, it's something I've never done and doesn't look like it's something I could ever do. And so that's always kind of fun to watch.
When I think of speed skating, I remember. This is how old I am. Do you remember Dan Jansen?
Oh yeah.
It's like everyone was really excited about Dan Jansen and speed skating. And then I've never heard about anyone since then.
There was Apollo Anton Ono.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That was the short track where like, you know, the Korean team would just like, they'd send like 4 guys out there and 3 of them would just try to take him out. So he didn't win.
Yeah. I actually did decent, like I can ice skate. So like, I feel like that would have been my sport.
Nice.
Probably was the speed skating. I mean, hockey's a classic. Always can't go wrong with hockey. But I'm curious, do they still have the like skiing and shooting event? Is that still
biathlon? Yes, they still do biathlon. It is it's always awesome to watch these like very, you know, fit Nordic women's cross-country skiing for dozens of miles, and then they stop and open fire with like long rifles. It's pretty awesome.
I was gonna say, it's just one of those weird ones where I'm like, where did that even come from? They're like skiing and shooting, you know, like so they're you know, did that come straight out of like a war sort of situation, you know, where it's like the Norway or Finland where they're like fighting these wars on skis and shooting, and they're like, what if it was a sport?
Sort of. I mean, it's actually really funny you say that, because a lot of, you know, some biathletes can kind of trace back to the guy we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about a Norwegian guy named Fridtjof Nansen, who is like a national hero, national treasure in Norway. And he did a lot of outdoor survival stuff. He's operating before the Winter Olympics, like the modern Winter Olympics began, but he kind of is not only responsible for making skiing like a popular sport in Europe, but he also, basically the biathlon was his life. He was using it to like hunt polar bears and walruses and stuff though. So it was cross country ski for 50 miles. And then every once in a while you have to shoot something that's trying to kill you.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. You're out in the wild, something's trying to kill you. Now I get it. Now that's why you need the gun. It's for protection. It's not for fun.
Yes, exactly. It is, you know, occasionally if you're Fridtjof Nansen and you're skiing through Greenland,
there's just a polar bear chasing you.
Polar bears chasing you.
Yeah.
You have to do it while starving, and you don't have the, you know, you're doing it in wool clothes and not the Gore-Tex.
Yeah, naturally.
So yeah, that's who we're going to talk about today, actually. So Fridtjof is not only a badass athlete, like a guy who a lot of Olympic skiing can trace their heritage back to. He was an Arctic survivalist. He was a PhD neuroscientist, a Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and kind of an all-around badass character who traveled to the North Pole almost, and had a lot of crazy adventures all around Europe and the Arctic. So
fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So definitely stick with us. If skiing and shooting and biathlon and any of that stuff sounds interesting to you, I think you're going to like this episode. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Fridtjof Nansen was born in 1861 outside Oslo, Norway. He's brilliant, he's tough, he's resilient, and he's extremely Nordic. So, Andrew, I don't know if you were able to find pictures of this guy while you were doing your research, but every picture ever taken of him is badass. Whether he's 3 years old or like in his 60s, he always looks like a badass.
I mean, first off, you assume I did some kind of research. Big mistake. But no, I did take a look, and I mean, the quality of, considering those photos, I don't know, 100 and something years old, it looks crystal clear. But he's a serious looking dude.
Yes. He is a serious looking dude. It is an old photo, and that was in the days you had to stay perfectly still. And I guess he was just that serious of a guy that he could stay perfectly still for that amount of time.
Impressive.
Yeah, he's got a piercing stare that looks like it could boil water. And in most of the pictures, except for the one where he's a child, he has an awesome mustache. He looks like the guitarist for a black metal band that plays a lot of songs about glaciers. That's kind of the best way to describe what this man looks like.
Yeah.
And, you know, just looking at him, you're like, this guy's badass. I have to know more. So, all right. He has a genius level intellect. He is big, strong, tough Norwegian guy. And from a very early age, he decides he wants to test himself against the elements. He loves being outside. He loves the outdoors. And as a teenager, A lot of guys are like trying to learn how to talk to girls or sneaking beer, but Nansen is trying to survive the Norwegian wilderness. He's going off for days, sometimes weeks at a time into the forest with nothing but a knife, his pet dog, and his mustache to keep him company. And he would just, no tent, no sleeping bags, nothing. He'd go out there and just live off whatever he could hunt or forage and build his own shelters with stuff he found in the wild. And he's just doing this for fun. So in the course of his exploring the Norwegian wilderness, which was, largely unpopulated in 1870 something, he would go off and pull 50-mile days on cross-country skis. Now, these are not the modern skis. We were talking about winter sports. My wife is a big ski fanatic, so I've been learning to ski. And the skis you have now are very different from 1870s skis, which were just wooden boards that you strapped to your feet.
like the planks of wood behind me, just like 2x4s.
Exactly. It's a 2x4. You strap it to your foot. He's going 50 miles over unmapped, uncharted wilderness. And just to kind of put that in perspective, the modern Olympic, marathon of skiing is 50 kilometers, which is like 30 miles. And that's kind of the most grueling cross-country ski race that the Olympics has ever offered. And this guy was clocking 1.5 of those.
It doesn't sound fun at all. I don't get it.
From what I understand, like I've done a lot of downhill skiing. Cross country just seems like work. It just seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound fun. It's like running. I think you have to really love it to want to go do it for fun.
I mean, I'll run if like my life is in danger. If I need to run for a reason, then I'm going to run. Skiing is like, well, how did I even end up there in the first place? Like, why do I have these planks attached to my feet, and why do I need to do it for 30 miles? Right. There better be a damn good reason.
It's the only way to explore, right? Because where he's at, the snow is so deep and it's uncharted. You couldn't, maybe if you had snowshoes, but it's not going to be as fast as the cross-country skis. And he's trying to go places that nobody's been before. And the only way to get there is if you're willing to ski in a direction nobody has ever felt like skiing before for distances that nobody would ever do. And
I mean, it's a different time. These days, like the idea of exploring is kind of, maybe if you're like a kid who doesn't have access to Google Maps, but as an adult,
right, you scroll for a really long time on Google Earth.
Yeah, the idea of exploring is kind of, it's like, what is out there? I don't know. It's kind of crazy. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing anymore.
Right. It's weird to think that like 150 years ago, there were parts of the earth that nobody had ever visited.
Yeah, didn't know what was there.
Yeah. And so that's what he's interested in, right? He's not just some meathead with a compass. He's not just a world-class athlete. He's trying to learn about this stuff. He's an academic. He studies zoology, ecology, oceanography. They give him more excuses to be outside, but he's really interested in the world around him. So in 1882, he hops on a seal hunting ship called the Viking, because of course it is. And he heads for Greenland, which is, just across the Arctic Sea from Norway. While everyone else on the boat, it's a sealing ship. So they're there to hunt seals and, basically hunt seals and bring them back to sell for meat and various other seal related products. Nansen isn't there to hunt seals. He's there to learn about them. So he tries to get close to them. He sketches them. He's an artist. He does studies of the anatomy of the seals. He meets polar bears, and he says in his biography that
he meets polar bears.
Yeah,
he says, hey bud, how's it going?
To touch the polar bears. He wanted to know about them. Wanted to learn about them.
They have a beer,
right? And so he's getting close to these animals and he's learning about them. And while he's studying this stuff, he finds something weird in Greenland. He's finding weird like driftwood and mud on the ice in places that like would never have that, right? Like he's in this uncharted ice shelf glacier and he's finding driftwood and mud and things. And he's trying to figure out what happened. And he's comes up with this idea that makes sense to us now, but he comes up with the idea that the ocean is always moving. So the water, like this driftwood was picked up probably somewhere very far from here. He does some samples, finds out it's from Siberia, and it's ended up in Greenland. And he's trying to think about this, and this is going to come back later because he this kind of will stick in his mind. And he's like, how did How did that water from all the way over there get all the way over here? That's interesting. And this is going to be part of one of his big expeditions later on. But meanwhile, he's studying invertebrates. He's studying all manner of animals. He gets back to Oslo and gets his PhD in zoology from the University of Oslo. His graduate dissertation is an exploration of the central nervous system of lower invertebrates, which doesn't sound all that exciting, except that in the process of this, he comes up with the idea that brains are made out of individual cells, which he calls neurons. And this paper basically like is the beginning of neuron theory and the invention of modern neuroscience. So,
I mean, that's pretty badass. Was he like, I'm also like, I'm like back then, anyone who has an idea about brains, I'm like, what were they doing to get in there? Like, you know, was he looking at some brains?
Probably looking at some brains, probably like this expedition had to club a lot of seal.
Yeah.
And so he gets his PhD, but instead of looking for some tenure track professor gig, he starts working at a research station in Norway. He's working with Armar Hansen, who's the guy who discovers the leprosy bacteria. Basically, the beginning of the cure for leprosy is happening in the same research station.
That sounds like it was probably a fun discovery. Wonder what it was. It was not like a Marie Curie sort of like situation, you know, where discovered it like personally.
Right, yeah. Don't know. Nansen doesn't get leprosy. He manages to evade that. In 1884, he's working at this research station in Norway. He's 23 years old. He hears that there is a ski jumping competition on the other side of Norway. So he takes a study break to ski 300 miles over a usually impenetrable mountain range to participate in a ski jumping competition that was taking place on the other side of the country. He skis from Bergen to Oslo for the Husby ski races. He wins the ski races. He wins the ski jumping competition, which must have been extremely terrifying in 1884. And then he was like, okay, I won. And then he skis back with his gold medals, because of course he did.
I just think it's funny. It's like, there's a ski competition, jumping competition. I'm going to ski to the competition and then jump, and then I'm going to ski home. Like,
it's just a warm up.
Do they not have horses? I don't know. Like
a boat, right? Take a boat
train?
around or something. Train, yeah. Don't know. Nobody ever crosses this mountain, but he skied up it and skied down the other side. So there you go. So, okay, 1888, he's a super genius PhD ski jumping wilderness expert. He decides he's going to get a couple of friends together, and he's going to be the first person to cross Greenland on skis. Now, nobody has ever really attempted an exploration of the interior of Greenland at this point. No, it's what you said. Nobody knows what's there. And this is like, you know, the people he's talking to about this are like, this is a suicide mission. You shouldn't do this. Anybody who's ever even thought about trying this gave up on their attempt. So, okay, he's like, I think I could do it. I cross-country ski all the time. It'll be fine. So he gets some friends together, and he does something different from a few of the other expeditions. Most of them, so Greenland is super huge. You can see it on a map, even with like the map distortion. Greenland's gigantic. It's all ice and mountains. And so people at this point in time, the Inuit lived on the western coast of Greenland, but the eastern coast has nothing. That's the wind side. It's no fun. It's misery, right? And people would land on the west and try to ski to the east and then get picked up by a boat and sail out. He's like, no. What if we landed on the east and skied across to the west where the people are? So Hear me out. He has the boat take him to the eastern coast of Greenland, drops him off. He unpacks his skis, gets his guys together, and then the boats leave.
So that's it. I mean, no turning back.
Yep. He didn't burn the boats like literally, but he was just like, well, people ask him about it later. He's like, well, if the boats had stayed there, then it would have been too easy for me to turn around and go back. If I take away the safety net, then like I have no other option but to go forward or die. So that's how I did it.
I mean, that's one way to motivate yourself.
Yeah. So, okay, he's like, there is no plan B because plan B indicates failure, and Nansen has never failed at anything in his life, and he's not planning on starting. So here we go. He gets out on these skis. He sets off. The quote from him about this is, "The much praised line of retreat is a snare for people who wish to reach their goal." Great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he and 5 other guys spend the next 2 months cross-country skiing across the continent of Greenland. They go through ice. They're exhausted. They're dehydrated. Turns out nobody knew it was in the middle of Greenland. It is a 1,000-mile long mountain range that in places gets up over 9,000 feet. And
no
temperatures
problem.
are as low as 50 degrees below.
Oh, 50 degrees below zero.
Yes, 50 below.
Yeah. That's pretty cold.
That's pretty cold. He discovers all that. And and sails across to the west coast of Greenland, where he arrives at Gotthab, which is an Inuit settlement. Now,
I bet they're just there and be like, "What, dude? What the hell?"
This dude just comes. These giant Norwegian dude just came skiing in from the east. Well, here's the thing: is that they get there in winter, and there's no more boats. The boats are all gone for the year. So he lives with the Inuit for the winter, and he learns some stuff from them. He learns how to build and paddle kayaks. So he kind of invents kayaking, or at least brings it to Europe.
Sure.
He develops a sled called the Nansen sledge, which takes like basically Inuit technology and adds basically skis on it so that you can carry heavy stuff over long distances through heavy snow. And he develops what's known as the Nansen knife, which is a 4-inch blade that's very useful, was used all throughout like the age of exploration for adventuring and stuff. And,
cool.
I say invented, he just basically, the Inuit had one and he was like, "This is awesome. I want it." And then he brought it back to Europe, but everybody's like, "That's cool. Can we make these also?" And he was like, "Yes, it's called the Nansen knife."
Yeah. Typical.
He comes back and writes a book about his experience with the Inuit, and he is like a huge national hero in Norway because nobody had ever done this before. And his book becomes a national bestseller. He illustrates the book, does all these hand-drawn illustrations of the book, which of course he does because this guy's not only like strong and smart, he's also artistically inclined and he's just good at everything. He could probably sing, and dance and stuff.
Play the piano for sure.
Right, play the piano. He was probably good at everything. Everybody liked him. Women loved him. He does get married in 1889 to a woman named Eva Sars. She was a famous mezzo-soprano singer. She's a pioneer of women skiing. She also they would go on
one of those couples.
Yes, they would cross. They would go on all these big cross-country skiing trips. She got into ski jumping. She was like one of the first women ski jumpers. There was no women ski jumping, so she just competed against the men. And when she beat them, they all complained that women shouldn't be allowed to do this. So yeah, she's badass also. And he's this kind of global superstar all of a sudden. He's done this age of exploration thing that nobody's done. His book gets translated into dozens of languages. And this is where kind of the Olympic stuff gets started, where people start to read about this and they're like, "How did he cross this much? He was on skis? What's that?" I thought that was just some weird Norwegian thing.
Yeah.
And so he, kind of gets into, bringing, he develops the Nansen sledge, which uses skis. He develops his own ski bindings because, instead of having to tie the ski onto your foot, he develops a binding, which is what we use nowadays. And he kind of begins this European interest in competitive skiing, down to the point where, he inspires the Norwegian team. In 1924, the Winter Olympics begin. The modern Winter Olympics begin. The Norwegian team wins everything. He's alive for this, but he doesn't attend.
Yeah, that doesn't even seem fair.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then he was so instrumental to bringing skiing as a international sport that in 1952, Norway hosted the Winter Olympics, and Fridtjof's grandson was the guy who lit the torch at the Olympics. And he was chosen to honor Fridtjof Nansen's legacy as the man who turned skiing from a way to get around the woods into a world-class sport.
I like that. It's a way to get around the woods.
Yes.
To a sport. All of it seems crazy. It's like, yeah, just put these planks of wood on your feet and slide on the snow. It's
I'll tell you, as like a guy from Florida who skied for the first time in his like mid 30s, I was trying to, my wife was like, you just go down here like this. I was like, what is this? Like, how does this even work?
It's very awkward. It's kind of terrifying if you end up on like one of those like slopes that you're like, all of a sudden you're like, I want to go on the bunny hill, but you end up on like the Black Diamond or something. And you're just like, this seems dangerous.
I don't think like people are supposed to go down this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. He's a skiing pioneer. And, you know, at this point in the story, right, he's an international celebrity. He's an author. He's a PhD. He's, he's invented neuroscience. He's crossed Greenland on skis. He's winning ski jumping competitions and developing knives and fighting seals and polar bears. This is not the most badass thing that he did. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about like, you know, for him, like what's next? And he decides, remember that driftwood that he saw? He's like, I think I can use math and science to apply that driftwood, that Siberian driftwood I found in Greenland. I think I can use that science and apply it to become the first person to ever reach the North Pole.
Did he have a job? How do things work back then?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're going to find out what happens here because he's going to go to the Norwegian government and ask them for money to make a North Pole expedition, and they're going to tell him basically it's a suicide mission, but sure. All right, welcome back to Badass of the Week. We are talking about Fridtjof Nansen, and I am here with producer Andrew Jacobs. So, Andrew, before we went on the break, we were talking about the weird driftwood thing. And, you know, Nansen's a genius, and he's thinking about ice moving, water moving, and transmitting ice into different locations. And so I'm going to have you guess what his plan was for becoming the first human being to reach the North Pole.
I mean, I have to assume he's just going to ski there. Right.
It will eventually go that route. Yes, it will eventually fall into that. But the way he starts is by saying, all right, look, the water moves and it freezes, and then the ice continues to move even after the water continues to move even after it's ice. Now, at this time, people have been trying to reach the South Pole and the North Pole, but they can't because it's ice year round, and they don't have the technology at this point to like cut through the ice. And people are trying. They're trying to build harder and stronger and pointier holes so they can smash through the ice and get to the North Pole, but it's not working. So what does Nansen say? He's like, you know what I can do? I'm going to build a ship that will be designed to get stuck in the ice. And I'm going to stick my boat in the ice, and I'm going to plant it there. And then I'm going to just chill inside the boat and let the ocean drag me to the North Pole.
Interesting theory. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So he builds a boat. He comes up with the plans for a boat called Fram, which means forward. And it has a super hard hull, but it's rounded. It's kind of walnut shaped so that when the ice squeezes the boat, when a boat gets stuck in the ice doesn't crush it. It kind of pops it up to the surface. So the boat kind of sits on top of the surface of the ice. It's completely surrounded by ice. It can't sail, but the ice and the glaciers and stuff will drift. And if he can plan his math correctly, he can make an awesome party boat, chill inside the boat with all of his cool stuff, and just hang out and wait until it carries him to the North Pole.
All right. I want to see if this works. I mean, seems questionable.
It seems questionable. The Norwegian government thought so as well. They thought he was crazy, but, he's Nansen. So at this point, they're just like, I mean, give it a shot, I guess, right?
Other than that, if it's not a boat, he's going on skis, which also seems questionable. So,
yes. So Fram is lodged in the ice pack off the coast of Siberia in 1893. And the plan is to just let it drift in the ice while the tides of the ocean carry him across the North Pole. So the boat isn't crushed. And he just kind of, because it's freezing cold outside, right? He just goes inside the hull of the ship with his buddies, and they have like a luxury party boat down there. There's a library. They have electric lights that are powered by a wind generator that he came up with. They've got enough food and drink for 5 years, and they're basically just like glamping the Arctic Circle, 1893. And so I guess
that's
Andrew,
pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. If you think about people trying to cross the North Pole, it's a lot less glamorous than that. I feel like it's
usually I've got these visions of people just like freezing and slowly dying and whatnot.
Right, exactly.
This sounds like a very slow cruise.
Yes. Don't forget, if you're listening to this episode, please leave a comment what weird thing you would bring on From with you if you were going to be stuck in the ice for 3 years waiting to cross the North Pole.
I mean, is it 2026 or is it 1893?
Dealer's choice.
I mean, 2026. I'm bringing a laptop. we gotta watch Netflix, catch some baseball. 1893. You might as well bring the encyclopedia, because that's the entire catalog of the encyclopedia, because you're gonna be there for a while.
Yes. So he does this, and I want to point out, because we talked about Shackleton on the show already. We talked about his expedition, and this strategy, it's going, and he's getting carried towards the pole, and it's working. And it's interesting because this will be the strategy that is used by Shackleton and Scott and Amundsen, and like this. It turns out that this works. You can freeze your boat, and we'll carry you up towards the pole. He starts to go, and it looks like it's going to work. And he kind of pioneers this in 1893. So, all right, it's going, and he's a scientist. He's an oceanographer. He's trying to take samples of the water and stuff while he's up there, because he's about to become he passes further north than any human had ever been. And so he's like, I got to do some research while I'm up here. I want to take water temperature. I want to take water samples. And, he has this problem where he's trying to take deep water temperature samples. But if you're trying to do that, it's a little tricky, because when you pull the thermometer back up from down low, the upper levels of the water adjust the temperature. So he invents this thing while he's stuck in the ice pack trying to get to the North Pole. He invents a thing called the Nansen bottle, which is like a metal cylinder with a thermometer in it, but it has basically like a weight on a string. So you drop the bottle down into the deep water. When you get to the depth you want, you drop this little weight down, which flips the bottle and flips the thermometer sideways so it doesn't continue to move up or down. And then you can pull the bottle up, and you have an accurate reading of the temperature down there, which,
smart dude.
He's a smart dude. And this Nansen bottle is used today. They still use this technology to water sample in oceanography. Now they have electronic stuff, but like the Nansen bottle for like over 100 years was used by oceanographers.
Wow.
To do this. And he invents it literally with stuff he had on his boat while he's stuck in the ice. So, okay, he's supposed to be there for 3 years. After 18 months, he realizes, yes, it's working. He's moving towards the pole, but he's moving at a rate of about a mile a day. And Fridtjof Nansen is not the kind of guy who's going to sit here drinking coffee, waiting for 3 years.
Yeah, like, you do the math on that, so it could take a while.
Yeah. He's got 5 years of food, but he's just like, I'm done waiting. I'm gonna do what you suggested, Andrew. I'm gonna get my skis. I'm gonna ski the North Pole. So he grabs his toughest crewmate, a guy named Hjalmar Johansson, and they jump off the ship with some dogs and some dog sleds and some skis and some food and stuff. They're 140 miles of open ice away from the North Pole. And so they just try to ski that or dog sled that. This is 1893. They're wearing wool stuff. Like, this is hard work. Freezing temperature, below freezing temperatures, wind, all this stuff. They don't get to the pole.
I mean, it's an ice desert. It's not like there's like, places to take a break along the way.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these people would do the expeditions that made it would do like a big long journey, bury a bunch of supplies, come back, then go back later. And these guys don't really have that luxury. So they get up to 86 degrees north. which is not quite 90, but it's the farthest anybody's ever been. And they're like, we got to turn back. But here's the problem. The Fram is drifting 1 mile a day in an unknown direction.
Yeah.
And they soon realize we don't actually know where our boat is.
So when I said he was smart like 5 minutes ago, he was smart in some ways.
Yes. He realizes that he can't make it.
Yeah.
So he and Johansen head south from the North Pole towards a place called Franz Josef Land, which is like extreme north, like just freezing, like same latitude as like extreme northern Canada, right?
Sure.
Siberia. This is where they run to. They dog sled down to Franz Josef Land. They get there. There's a little village there, there's not even a little village there, but there was like a ship that was supposed to meet them there. By the time they get there, that ship is gone. So now everything's frozen. All the water is frozen. No ships can get in or out. So these guys are stuck on the shore of Franz Josef Land in 1895 in the winter. And they just build a stone hut out of rocks they find. And they live over the winter in the most inhospitable climate on Earth, in the extreme north, in the Arctic, in a stone hut they built. They're eating walrus blubber and polar bears, powering their lamps with like whale fat and like walrus fat.
And having some very in-depth personal conversations.
Yes.
So
yes.
got a lot of time.
Yeah, they had to share a sleeping bag because it was so cold. They couldn't. They were going to die if they slept in their own sleeping bags. They had one pair of clothes each that they just had to wear all year because they were not prepared to spend a winter there. They brought stuff to run 140 miles to the pole. What does he have? He's got his knife. He's got the Nansen knife. He's got a harpoon, which he uses to hunt walruses. He's got a lever action Martini Henry rifle that shoots a 450 round, 450 Action Express for shooting big game. And there's a story that over the course of this winter, Nansen and Johansen were, they built kayaks because they're in the forest, and he learned how to do that from the Inuit. So he builds kayaks, and they're kayaking, and the polar bear attacks Johansen. And this is possibly the most Norwegian story ever because Johansen is attacked. He's pinned under the polar bear, which is trying to kill him. And Nansen's standing there, and Johansen looks over at him. And the way Nansen tells the story is Johansen very calmly said, "You'd better hurry, otherwise it will be too late." And so Nansen had to run to his kayak and get his rifle and shoot the polar bear at point blank range to save his friend.
And
then they ate it.
What was that polar bear even doing? Is just leisurely considering whether or not to eat the guy.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
They didn't change their clothes for a year. They're making fires. They're burning walrus blubber. Their wool suits become so saturated with oil and soot that they are basically black, like blackened from the boots to the top of their head. Their gear becomes basically waterproof armor. It's like becomes like a dry suit. It's so grungy.
Yeah.
The winter passes, and in summer of 1896, they start moving south again with their sleds, kayaks. They've built all this stuff. Fridtjof Nansen is heading south, and he hears a dog bark, and he starts to follow the barking of the dog. And it's British explorer Frederick Jackson. And if we just had the most Norwegian moment, here's the most like British moment. Jackson sees this guy, and Nansen's huge. He's over 6 feet tall, which is huge. Like he's a big giant dude. He's completely covered in soot from head to toe. Looks like some like kind of demonic figure probably coming out of the north of the ice desert. And Jackson looks at him and is like, "Aren't you Nansen?" And Nansen says, "Yes, I am." It's not quite Dr. Livingston, I presume, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, extremely. It's extremely British, extremely Nordic.
You mentioned, yes, I am.
These guys are also casual.
Yeah, they just nod at each other. Well, let's get to it. I assume you want to go home.
I would have been like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, exactly. Any normal person would.
Yeah.
So Nansen gets back to Norway. He finds that Fram did make it back to Norway. It went through the ice pack. It missed the pole, but it did get through the ice pack and sailed back home. He publishes 6 volumes of data that he collected on his course to the North Pole. So he's not just an explorer of the North Pole. He is like the grandfather of Arctic oceanography, because his books, like you said, the encyclopedia, like he basically wrote it while he was on the trip. He turns Fromm over to a good buddy of his, a guy named Roald Amundsen, who then uses that ship to get to the South Pole a few years later. So Fromm is the ship that Amundsen takes to the South Pole, and it's the one that Nansen built to get to the North Pole. It was built in 1890 using weird math that Nansen invented himself. And it is to this day the wooden ship that reached the highest latitude and the lowest latitude.
Wow.
Cool. So pretty cool. But Nansen is still not done doing badass stuff. Now, he has to put his exploration stuff on hold in 1914 because World War I begins. And Nansen decides the only way for me to get back into the wilderness and fighting polar bears is to single-handedly end World War I. So let me try to do that. Not really, but like he becomes Norway's representative to the League of Nations. Like he does a lot of anti-war stuff for Norway. When the war ends, Norway joins the League of Nations, which is kind of the proto-UN. Yep. And he becomes the High Commissioner for Refugees. He works with the Red Cross to try to bring humanitarian aid to people who were affected by the war. At this time, the Allies are blockading Europe because they're trying to like starve out the Germans and the Austrians. But he negotiates with the Allies to get that blockade adjusted so that food can get into starving people in Germany and Austria and Serbia. So he kind of negotiates, bringing food into starving people during the war. He works really hard to find a way to provide ethical treatment to displaced persons and refugees. So he develops a lot of techniques that are still used by the UN today for how to deal with like large numbers of refugees that need housing and food and shelter. His most badass accomplishment to this end was developing something called the Nansen Passport, which is a document.
I do like he named everything after himself.
Everything's named after himself. Yeah. You're never going to forget Nansen. Nansen. Sign the Nansen Passport with my Nansen knife.
Yeah.
Ride it out there on the Nansen sledge.
Yeah.
With water samples I collected with the Nansen bottle. So this is a document that allows refugees to travel to countries that can help them. So if you're a refugee, you're fleeing war, you get this Nansen Passport from the League of Nations, and this allows you to like cross a border into a friendly country where you can apply for aid and housing and get your life back on track. After the war, he negotiates post-war prisoner of war exchanges between the Allies and the Central Powers. He helps. There's a lot of there's war still going on in Turkey and Greece and Armenia. You've got the Armenian situations happening at this time. Turkey and Greece are fighting a war. He gets in there to try to help civilians who are being affected by these wars get refugees out of there so that they're not, because there's some really horrible things happening to civilians in these wars. And he's trying to, he does a lot of work to help people escape persecution. And then after that, there is the great Soviet famine. So the Soviet Union has broken away, and there are a lot of Soviet citizens who are starving to death. And Nansen gets in there and he's like, we have to help these people. But in order to do that, he needs to negotiate first with Lenin and then with Joseph Stalin, both of whom extremely distrusted the Western powers. Yeah. But he is able to get in so close with, he's such like a good guy and everybody likes him, that Stalin and the Soviets are like, okay, we're not going to deal with the West unless it's Nansen. We'll only talk to Nansen about this because he's the only person we think we could trust. So he's credited with saving the lives of something like 10 million people by instituting a food policy. He talks to the Allies to be like, I need food for these people. They're starving. And then he has to talk to Stalin to be like, you have to let this food in and get it to these people or they're going to die. Wow. And that's not too bad for a guy who was like shooting polar bears in the face and then building shelters in the wilderness in Franz Josef Land a few years earlier. And so that's Fridtjof Nansen. He's an adventurer, explorer, scientist, humanitarian. He dies in 1930 at the age of 68 of like exhaustion while trying to help alleviate the Great Soviet Famine. So the entire country of Norway shuts down for his funeral. He's this greatest hero in the history of Norway. He gets a Nobel Peace Prize for his work with the Soviet famine. And, he goes on to like become he's this national treasure, right? Not only was he like the most famous international explorer, he's like, the Teddy Roosevelt or this great, heroic, he's an athlete. He's invents Olympic skiing.
Humanitarian. Mm-hmm. I mean, what a dude.
What a dude, right? His son goes on to carry on after him. His son founds a group called Nansen Helpen in 1936 that helps Jews flee Germany during the persecution there. Joins the Norwegian resistance movement, survives like a Nazi death camp, and then co-founds UNICEF, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, in 1953. So that's his kid. Wow. And his grandkid lit the torch in the Olympics. So, okay. Now,
and everyone after that, disappointment.
Anything less than that, what are you even doing? I do like that Odd also named his foundation the Nansen Helpen. I like that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Okay, so usually Andrew, I ask what's the lesson, but Nansen actually says it himself. So I'll use his words. On November 3rd, 1926, he gave a speech to the students at St. Andrews University in Scotland. Now, at this point, he's 65 years old. And if you look at him as an older man, like he still looks badass. He looks like Otto von Bismarck or something. At this point in his life, he's 65 years old. He's not just like the ice guy. He's not the explorer. He's not the North Pole explorer, the guy who crossed Greenland. He's a global statesman. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He's like the most famous diplomat on earth. He stands before a room of young students and gives them his badass manifesto. And he says, quote, "Let me tell you the secret of such so-called successes as there have been in my life. And here I believe I give you really good advice. It was to burn my boats and demolish my bridges behind me. Then one loses no time in looking behind, when one should have quite enough to do in looking ahead. Then there is no chance for you or your men but forward. You have to do or die." Basically, he says if you take the safety net away, you're going to try harder.
Yeah,
Is this a good lesson? I don't know.
It's pretty badass.
It's
hard to say if I wholly agree with it, but it's pretty badass. It clearly worked for him. I mean, there's something to be said for, pointing yourself forward and without being able to look back. There's something to that. I think that's what he's really saying.
Yes. If you're going to free solo Taiping Tower, like you need to, you're going to try a little bit harder than you would if there was a safety net down there. Now, are we recommending this to the listenership of Badass of the Week? No, we are not. It worked out for him. That might be some kind of like survivor's bias or some kind of logical fallacy, but it is badass. You cannot argue with the fact that was bad. Take that safety net out of there. I'm going to do better if you take it without it.
Yeah. Yeah. We should all aspire to be as badass as this guy.
Yep. So that's Fridtjof Nansen. He's a national hero of Norway and a Olympic badass, a exploration badass, a survivalist badass, and a humanitarian badass.
And so topical too. We got the Winter Olympics in this. We got Greenland. We got a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, really nailing it.
Yeah, I considered that. It was like every current event topic, everything trending right now in the news is in this episode. So I hope you guys liked it. All right, that's our episode for today. Andrew, thank you for helping me tell the story. And of course. And thanks to all you guys out there for listening to it. We love having you come talk to us. And like we said before, like please do like and subscribe and do all of those things. Tell your friends about it. Leave us a comment. Send us an email about somebody you might want us to write about in the future, or a guest you might want us to have on the show, because we like hearing all of that stuff. So, okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week with another character.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. Executive producers are Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, Andrew Jacobs, Hiram Garcia, Brian Gewirtz, Frankie Chaparino, and of course, me, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and my semi-regular but always awesome co-host, Dr. Patricia Larish. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Our mixing, music, and sound design is done by the incomparable Jude Brewer. Production support by Jean McHale-Waite. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, tell your friends, and tell your enemies. And please leave us a review. If you want to support Badass of the Week, please check out our Patreon page. We'll be back next week with another one.